A tourist's snowball splattered against the guardsman's pristine red coat, and she called him a robot. Emboldened by the crowd, she stepped closer, ready to provoke him again. But with one subtle move, the unflinching guard sent her tumbling into the snow, leaving the crowd cheering and her confidence shattered. What happened next turned her stunt into an unforgettable lesson. But before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. We share the untold stories, secrets, and traditions of the British Guards every day. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. It was a typical winter day in London, and Buckingham Palace was blanketed in a picturesque layer of fresh snow. Guardsman John stood on duty, an immovable figure of tradition in his tall bearskin hat, crimson uniform, and impeccably polished boots. Tourists milled about, snapping photos and taking videos of the stoic guards. Children giggled, couples posed, and the occasional brave soul tried to coax a reaction out of the famously unflinching soldiers. Then came Karen. Karen, a loud and unapologetically brash American tourist, stomped onto the scene, her bright pink puffer jacket clashing with her oversized scarf. Her cheeks were flushed, not from the cold, but from her unshakable sense of self-importance. Armed with a steaming cup of hot chocolate and a penchant for mischief, she declared loudly to the group of onlookers, "Let's see if these guys are actually human." Spotting a patch of snow, Karen stooped down with a dramatic flourish and began forming a snowball. The crowd murmured, some amused, others horrified. A nearby child tugged on their parent's sleeve. "Is she allowed to do that?" Karen ignored the growing buzz around her and took aim. "All right, let's see if he flinches," she announced with glee, winding up her throw like a pitcher at the World Series. The snowball arced through the air, spinning in slow motion as it headed straight for Guardsman John's chest. It hit with a soft plop, leaving a small wet mark on his pristine red coat. The crowd gasped. Guardsman John didn't move a muscle. His expression remained as solid as stone. Inside, however, his mind raced. Really? Another one of these clowns? What is it about snow that makes people lose all common sense? Still, he held his composure, his years of training kicking in. Karen, emboldened by his lack of response, turned to the crowd with a triumphant grin. "Told ya, he's just a robot." The crowd, now a mix of tourists and locals, began to murmur among themselves. Some chuckled nervously while others looked scandalized. A few pulled out their phones, sensing that things were about to get interesting. Not satisfied with her initial success, Karen decided to double down, because of course one snowball wasn't enough to cement her reign as queen of bad decisions. "Let's see how far we can push him," she declared, scooping up another handful of snow with the enthusiasm of a child and the tact of a bull in a china shop. This time, she molded a lopsided, soggy monstrosity of a snowball, grinning triumphantly as if she'd just discovered the cure for boredom. "Come on, Mr. Serious. Smile for the camera," she taunted, brandishing the snowball in one hand while recording herself with her phone in the other. Her voice carried over the growing crowd like nails on a chalkboard, drawing the attention of bystanders who couldn't decide whether to cringe or stay for the inevitable train wreck. A small group of tourists, swept up in the absurdity, began chanting, "Do it! Do it!" like this was some kind of gladiatorial match. Others edged away, shaking their heads in disbelief. Among them, a man in a tweed coat muttered under his breath, "She's going to regret this," his tone a mix of pity and grim satisfaction. Karen, unfazed and apparently fueled by the spotlight, made an exaggerated show of crouching in front of Guardsman John. Her bright pink puffer jacket stood out like a neon sign, as did the smug expression plastered across her face. "Maybe this'll melt that stiff upper lip of yours," she cackled, hoisting the snowball high above her head like it was the torch of victory. John, ever the picture of stoic professionalism, remained still. His training was crystal clear. No reactions, no matter the provocation. But inside, his patience was starting to fray. Just let her embarrass herself. She's doing all the work for me, he thought, his face a mask of unshakable calm. The crowd had grown into a semicircle, phones at the ready, recording every second of the unfolding drama. Karen, clearly basking in her moment of infamy, took one final step forward, her snow-caked boots crunching audibly against the ground. She was practically nose to nose with John now. "Ready for this?" she sneered, her voice dripping with mockery. The air was thick with tension, the kind that makes you instinctively hold your breath. The crowd braced for what was sure to be a spectacular disaster. Just as Karen raised the second snowball over her head, poised to throw it like some victorious gladiator, Guardsman John made the smallest of movements. It was so subtle, so perfectly executed, that most of the crowd missed it entirely. His boot shifted forward ever so slightly on the icy cobblestones, just enough to set the stage for what came next. To the untrained eye, it could have been an accident. To anyone paying attention, it was nothing short of strategic genius. Karen, however, wasn't paying attention. Why would she? She was the star of her own little performance, her audience a mix of amused and mortified onlookers. "Here it comes," she bellowed, winding up like a baseball pitcher ready to strike. But as she stepped closer, the icy ground betrayed her. Her feet slid out from under her, and the world seemed to slow as she flailed dramatically, the snowball flying from her hand. And where did it land? Squarely in her own face. The crowd gasped as Karen hit the ground with a loud thud, her bright pink puffer jacket now speckled with snow. Her scarf, once an accessory of dubious fashion, was now a sticky mess of spilled hot chocolate. For a moment, there was silence, a delicious, suspenseful pause as everyone processed what had just happened. Then, someone in the crowd burst into laughter. It started as a chuckle but quickly spread like wildfire, rippling through the group until the courtyard echoed with applause and cheers. People clapped, some doubling over in hysterics while others scrambled to capture the moment on their phones. Karen, still sitting in the snow, looked as stunned as a cat caught in a bathtub. Through it all, Guardsman John remained perfectly still. His gaze was fixed forward, his face an unyielding mask of discipline and dignity. But if you looked closely, really closely, you might have caught the faintest twitch at the corner of his mouth. Inside, he allowed himself a private victory. Score one for the guard, he thought. Meanwhile, Karen scrambled to her feet, humiliated but still oblivious to the fact that her arrogance had turned her into the day's headline act. The crowd? They couldn't have been happier. Karen scrambled to her feet, her face red with both cold and embarrassment. "This is ridiculous! You all saw him trip me!" she screeched, gesturing wildly at John. The crowd wasn't buying it. Someone yelled, "You tripped yourself, lady!" while others continued to laugh and record. Nearby, a child whispered to their parent, "I think the guard is magic." Karen stormed off, muttering about lawsuits and ruined vacations. Meanwhile, the crowd began dispersing, many still chuckling and reviewing their videos. Some gave John respectful nods as they passed, and one particularly bold tourist saluted him. As the courtyard returned to normal, John stood steadfast, his face as stoic as ever. Inside, he allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Another day, another idiot. And so, the Snowball incident became yet another chapter in the long-standing tradition of Buckingham Palace guards outclassing their would-be tormentors. If you enjoyed this story, leave a like and let us know in the comments which guard tradition you'd like us to cover next. See you in the next video.